Good morning, Marianne. It's good evening.
Good evening, guys.
Yeah. So you're in Sedona and it's evening. For us, it's 8 in the morning. I woke up at 6 to get here to Cleel in the north to talk to you. And we're both very excited. We always love seeing you and talking to you.
Me too, with you guys. It's so,
yeah, exactly.
Right there.
To the heart. And we're having a show about inner authority and about fear.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we were thinking, the minute we spoke about inner authority, thinking we want to bring that subject up, of course, you came up as our role model for living inner authority. And we wanted to hear from you a little bit, so the people can hear what it is for you living out of inner authority, or living in inner authority, being your inner authority in the world right now. What does what does that mean for you? How does it unfold? What does it look like? Could you say some things about that?
Yes, I can. One of the things that became really clear for me when all of this started in March, and then it progressively got more intense, is how freaked out I would be if I didn't have access to my inner authority. That with all the input from the media and the news and Facebook and this conspiracy and this scientist and this doctor and this politician, everyone is saying something else. And it's just how to know what's truth and what's not truth. It's just impossible to know. So for me, the inner authority, my inner authority, allows me to know what's true for me and forget about everybody else. And it's that has given me a way to move through what's happening now on the planet. I mean, every single country is affected, every country, and in similar ways, with, cases and lockdown and no travel and schools closed or open, and, the economy suffering and businesses closing, restaurants closing. I mean, there's so much happening. And then from the lockdown, all the psychological repercussions of people having to stay home and not being able to be social the way we've been. So it's a very intense time, and I totally can relate to anyone having fear right now because they just don't know. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows, and everyone tries to pretend like they know, but nobody knows. And the one thing that is so beautiful for me is I've fallen in love with not knowing. That's really a beautiful place to live life from, that there's no way. The only thing I can know is right now I'm here and we're on Zoom together.
Yeah.
I know what I ate for dinner earlier. I have ideas about tomorrow, but who knows? We just don't know. And without my inner authority, I would not be relaxed in that not knowing.
And that's a good point, because, a lot of spiritual teachers taught us to be in the here now, and we all know mentally that it's the key, right? But unless you live it, you're not relaxed in it. And that's, this point that you say now, which is, it's totally in the body. So, there's always this, there's always this difference between what the mental says, and it can be very spiritual and and speak about what's going on and say, yeah, it's okay, it's all part of the plan, blah, 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 and be all spiritual about it. But actually, if your body is not relaxed in what is happening, you are not and not knowing, but really accepting, the unknown is that key to freedom. That's also something we talked about
Yeah, it's so beautiful, this. And, I mean, my story. I went to India in the 1970s. I've meditated up the kazoo. I have done so much meditation and, zazen, vipassana, therapy groups, I mean, on and on and on and on, all this stuff. And when the meditation was over and I walked out, I didn't realize it then, but my mind was really running my life. I mean, I didn't know it was. And through practice of my strategy and my inner authority, I got to see so clearly, because my mind was totally in opposition to everything my authority said yes to. So it was like, oh my God, you're throwing a tantrum because I'm not obeying you, which means I must have obeyed you my whole life, And that was shocking to me, because I had thought I was aware of my mind. I was witnessing all of these things, because before I started my own journey with inner authority, I was meditating like for, I think, 16 years or something, so so that, I think, is an aspect that people who are feeling fear or experiencing fear right now, and there are different types of fears, but there's also the fear that the mind creates. So if someone's saying, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to survive and what's going to happen, and then getting caught up in that story and then sharing with someone else and they're caught up in the story, and then this whole thing just kind of keeps churning, and that fear gets passed on. If people who are just being more aware of their mind and the thinking of their mind can change it to, my mind is freaked out. Yes. My mind doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And objectify.
That's actually really a tool. I want to stop here and say, and this I'm saying to the people, that what you're giving now is a tool, just noticing that it's not me, it's my mind. My mind is afraid. My mind is freaking out. And that's really something practical that that you people can do.
It's wonderful. Even writing it down, because I know I've done this exercise with many people, and they've said, after they've wrote it down for like a week, they say, my God, their mind's like a broken record. It just keeps repeating the same things, the same fears, the same worries, all of these things. Smadar, do you have anything you want to add to that or say?
Sweet. I was just wondering, I'm thinking about the viewers, our viewers now of this show, and I was thinking, of course, you explained the difference between inner authority and outer authority, but then again, if they're not aware of their inner authority, what is their inner authority? Right. What would be, besides the tool of my mind is thinking that way, if there is another tool that can be added to give them like a way to get in.
Yeah, I know this. I don't want to get into human design. I know this is more broad and everything, but I was told by my teacher, in India, to follow my heart. That was follow my feelings, that would take me wherever I'm meant to be. And that's not true. So, this whole thing of just your heart knows and follow your feelings and all of this is not true for me. For other people, it is. But for me and for 35% of the planet who have the same inner authority as me, that's not it. And the other thing is that the mind is so tricky. It has so many costumes. you know, that when I was even following my heart or following my feelings, it was my mind disguised as my feelings. Just, oh yeah, I really want to do that. And I really, you know, and oh, I just love this. You know, this whole thing that took me further and further and further outside, away from me. And now this coming back. So, inner authority is there's many types. You know, 50% have emotional inner authority, 35% have sounds like me as an inner authority, my ahas, ahs, you know, these sounds. Then there's, you know, in the moment intuition inner authority. So without actually knowing,
it's hard to speak about inner authority without speaking about human design and the mechanics.
For me, it's impossible.
Like, yeah. But there is this, you know, for me, I realize that inner authority, I mean, the mechanics take you to being an inner authority, but inner authority is actually a way of living. It's not, I mean, it is what it is. We are all inner authorities. It's just our mind does not let us be that because we listen to our mind. But actually, I feel if Earth, you know, if people on Earth could understand this, don't listen to your mind when it tells you what to do, but really understand it and do it, we will all be inner authority, you know. The design gave us the tool.
The other thing that I think, you know, other than for you, Pavaka, and those like you, the rest of us, I mean, and you also, but the rest of us really need to stop, you know, just stop. Stop going towards, stop wanting this and wanting that and chasing this and deciding I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this and all of this. It's really just stopping and waiting to see what life brings to us, because the inner authority comes after that, you know, because otherwise you can get into some place inside and then decide, oh yeah, I'm going to go do that. But where did it come from? Even if the inner authority has said yes, that waiting for life to come. I mean, can you imagine if the planet just started waiting a bit? I mean,
well, it did happen when they stopped everything and everybody went into lockdown. It was pretty beautiful. Yeah. You know what happened out in nature.
The vibration of Earth changed. Yes, and this is what I see. Can you imagine everyone out of lockdown in that space of waiting to just see what kind of comes? And I think that's a really important part to be able to get to the inner authority, because we're so driven to be going for it and pushing to get what we want. And it's so yang. It's so yang. And the yin is really, you know, what most of us, 92% of us, really need to be in and wait and see what comes, you know. There you are.
Yeah. Just lost you for a moment.
I
love that vision of yours. You just gave us a vision, you know, because I feel that what happened in lockdown is exactly that. Like the world, you know, stopped for everyone, but it wasn't out of, you know, our so-called choice. Yeah, and then trying to visualize what happened if we can be in that state of mind, all of us, just without the lockdown, you know, out of our freedom, you know, freely being that waiting. It's
so amazing, the waiting, because what?
I mean, it's hard to imagine, you know, a world waiting. So
yeah, it's, for me, the waiting was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. You know, I'm from New York. Not only do I want it now, I wanted it yesterday. You know, it's like, come on, let's get going here. And to wait was like, oh my God, I hated it. I just hated it. But it really changed my whole dynamics with the world and all the humans on the planet, because I was no longer pushing. A New Yorker, I can really push, you know? So that was gone. And it was like, I don't know, it's like a parting of the seas happened when you're no longer pushing. It's like when you're waiting and something comes towards you, it's like, and there's no resistance. It's like you're really taken in the river, and it's an amazing experience.
Wow. I can feel it.
And then the inner authority, what?
I can feel it when you speak. I can feel this, because I'm not a generator, you know, but when you speak it, and I always tell generators, you know, flow with the river, don't push the river, because, you know, but when you speak, I can feel this energy, and I'm thinking, you know, if generators are are like that, like you, and the energy moves that way, it's like cleaning water, you know, it's like cleaning the water of earth, you know, it's like the right movement of energy. It's so amazing.
It's so amazing, you know. And in the beginning, when I started waiting, I felt like I was trying to swim upstream and everyone else was in the flow. And then after a while, I realized, ooh, no, everyone else is trying to swim upstream. And now I'm finally in the flow, and life's just taking me, you know. And for me, the inner authority is not something to be used to make something happen. You know, the inner authority is something that says yes or no to whatever's come to me. I'm not going outwards from my inner authority. It's very, very yin. It's beautiful. It's so yin. But when I say yes and the energy's behind it, whoa, you know, it can be very powerful, but it's a whole different thing from pushing. And
and that's a really important point what you just said, because the mind, when it hears inner authority and it thinks we have a choice, it says, okay, I'm going to make my choice from my inner authority. But it's not about that. It's the other way around. It's when I give up this I that is supposed to make a decision. The inner authority is not this I, you know? The way you said it, it was just
and boy, you know, you end up surrendering to your inner authority, because some of the decisions it makes, the mind does not want to do. You know, it's like the mind is like, no, you can't say yes to that. Remember what happened before, and da-da-da. It's always bringing in the past and projecting into the future. And what I've found for myself is that it's really the waiting and the honoring and the surrendering to my inner authority has brought me to this space of now and being in now, you know, that it's, I mean, it's quite something. It's, I won't get into too much about what my experience is inside now after almost 25 years of honoring my inner authority and waiting. But, you know, it's all quantum mechanics and quantum physics. Everything they talk about is right here. It's just right here, you know. It's like it's so spiritual in a sense. What they talk about is exactly what is, you know. It's mind-blowing. Yeah. And I remember with the waiting in one of the workshops I did way back in Sedona, there was a projective physicist there, and I had been working about not initiating, you know, waiting. And I was talking about waiting, and his face just was like, so much seeing in his face. And it was like I could see that he saw, and I wanted to know what he saw, you know. So I asked him and he went, no. And then I said, no, I really want to know. He said, waiting's quantum. And I was like, all right, I don't quite know what quantum is. This was way back before I started really getting like in awe of quantum physics and all. And he said, waiting is the space between the particles. That still gives me goosebumps. You know, it's like the particles are solid and the waiting is just all the space between these things that are they're on their way towards us. You know, we don't have to go rushing out to get it from the mind, you know. So that was very cool. I don't know if I'm keeping on track with what we're meant to talk about. I'm just
you're perfect.
All over
You're perfect. But I wanted to ask Smadar if she wants to ask maybe a last question about, to go back to our subject of fear, which is something you understand deeply with your first motivation. Is there anything for whatever comes up?
I was so happy you expanded on the topic of the stopping, and it's like a key to enter inner authority for practically everybody. Yeah? So this is a good, let's say, tool to start with regarding our fear subject. I'm very content with what's going on right now.
And what just came up for me as well is that the fear is not going to go away right away when you start waiting. In fact, it's going to be so much more, because the mind is going to be, if I wait, how am I going to pay my bills? If I wait, how will I survive? It will just create more mental fears, you know. But in the waiting and then the inner authority together, those aspects, slowly the body is not listening so much to the mind, because the mind disturbs the body. You know, it's not the mind is just there. The mind affects the body. So slowly over time, you know, the body just relaxes more and more, and the mind becomes further away in a sense. It's like by being aware of the mind and what the mind is saying, and saying, this is my mind. My mind is afraid. My mind is worried about how I'm going to survive. To objectify the mind, it kind of puts the mind in its proper place, and then the body can just relax more and more, because it's in us. You know, there's nothing to get. There's nothing, no goal. There's nothing that we need to strive for. It's all inside. It's just covered over by layers and layers of mind and the conditioning we've taken in from parents and, you know, friends and country and all of it, you know, and it just takes time for those to fall away, because our true nature is inside. We're born with it. You know, we came in with it. It's just kind of like layer upon layer upon layer. And then we're looking out here for something to help us to relax, where the outer is never going to help us to relax, especially not now.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
I mean, really, I don't think if you pay attention out here, you could ever relax if you listen to all and you're trying to figure it all out, you know. And just to go back to the beginning, it's like I shake my head so many times a day when I'm looking at the news online, because I no longer have TV, and just seeing what's happening, and it's like, thank God for my inner authority.
Yeah.
Because I would be a basket case right now, and I'm not. I don't go out of the house I've been in. I go to the grocery store once a week. That's my life. all my cruises were canceled. The visiting the family were canceled. Workshops I was going to do were canceled. All my travel, everything was canceled. It was like the world said stop. And, you know, at the beginning, it was like, whoa, you know, kind of reverberating with this, and then just being in it. And now it's, I mean, I'm so comfortable and nothing's going on. Nothing's happening. I have no idea who's going to win the election. Nothing. But none of it concerns me. It only concerns my mind, because I'm going to still move through who's ever the president and whatever's going on in the world through my own inner authority, or my own GPS, you know. I always think of inner authority as the GPS. It's like it tells this where to go.
And people
this doesn't
the radio.
know.
Yeah, people listen. I always tell them, you listen to the radio, you don't hear the GPS, you know.
Yeah, so
that's freedom.
It's great. It's just it's so amazing. Yeah, freedom.
Freedom.
Mm.
Well, it's a good word to finish the interview with. Freedom. We went from fear to freedom, and
I like that.
An intergalactic journey, quantum, and everything. We got everything covered. And we want to thank you so much, Marianne.
Oh, thank you guys.
And your wisdom.
I enjoyed it so much. It was great.
So, goodbye for today. I'm closing the recording.